And we are live. Welcome to the last word. Today we are going live a little bit earlier in the afternoon since LordCognito is too fancy for the campfire today. He's got better podcasts to be on than this one. But actually, I think it's the fact that he's on two podcasts
Bestie.
today and he's trying not to be on a third to save his voice. So we will get him back next week. But he had Xbox obligations and Defining Duke and Iron Lord's podcast. And unfortunately, as we are third in line, we have to take a break from the Cognito this
Which is
week.
funny because I don't know what they could possibly be talking about for all those hours, given
Well,
that
Defining
presentation.
Duke will be their normal show, but yeah, the part about the big Xbox business podcast today will likely be very short, even though they can probably stretch it into something.
Oh, it sounds like they're doing regular business stuff that maybe
Yeah.
people shouldn't lose their minds over. It's crazy.
I didn't throw my Xbox in the trash, and I feel like I missed out on the hype train. Now I've got to hold on to my Xbox. I made a mistake. How you doing, Travis?
I'm doing good, man.
Yeah,
Busy, but in a good way.
busy.
Which is the way I like to be.
Yeah, I've been. I get a little more sleep than you probably, but I've been busy as well. Little Valentine's yesterday, but our Valentine's dinner is tomorrow. But in between this whole week is trying to play as many games as I can, kind of like you. So, I can aspire. I won't be quite as good at Travis at the, you know, goblin mode gaming sessions and lack
Not
of
having a
sleep.
life.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just letting everything else in your life go. So,
It's
still
hard to be
gotta
good. Can you be good at that though? Or is it just a thing that you are?
be good
You can
at.
only be bad. You can be good at that, but you're still bad. I
Yeah, I
guess
mean,
that's
yeah.
my
You
distinction.
could be obsessive over it, but as a overall person, yeah, I'm not sure what it does.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad.
Are you doing anything for Valentine's Day with the fiance?
Yeah, I took her to dinner last night, and it was a murder mystery
Yeah.
dinner. Somebody was murdered, and we were on the case. Everybody thought I was the murderer, even though I was not a part of the production, because
Of course.
I wear a suit and I have a very dumb personality. And also, the the murder in question, like, the theme was that it was about, like, critics and journalists, and then somebody at the table asked me what I did, and I was like, "I'm a professional critic," and they were like, "Oh, he's definitely part of
He's
it." I
in it.
was like,
He's
"I'm
totally
not."
there.
I was like, "I swear I'm not a part of it," and they still thought I was, and so there were a lot of people last night who guessed I was the murderer, even though I was not a part of the production. But it was fun, and Dee ended up winning. She apparently solved
Oh,
the case with the most accuracy because she took very good
all the
notes. So
notes.
she won. She got some
Do you get a
prizes.
free
And
dinner to come back and solve another one or something?
actually, yes. Yeah. Yeah. She did. She got a free dinner to come back, and then they gave her a T-shirt and a shot glass from the store
I
or
went through
whatever.
this whole dinner theater thing and all I got was this crappy shirt.
Yeah, something like that. I solved a murder. I don't know what it says. I got murdered over dinner.
That's funny, actually. Be like, hey, you solved one of these before. All right, well, come back, but you probably should give it about 6 months until we make a new investigation. Don't
That's
come.
literally what they said. They were like, "We change it every 3 months, so come back in April." And then we were like, "Okay."
All right,
So,
so apparently I can guess your entire evening just by
yeah, dude,
shooting in the dark
apparently
over here.
apparently you should be running a murder mystery dinner business because you have
Yes,
all the same ideas. It's pretty good.
yes.
Pretty
No,
good.
we've done one of those. It was only okay. The one we did, it was like in a restaurant, and then there was like random stuff around. Was yours kind of a smaller setting, or how many were involved?
Mine was there were a lot of people, but the trick was that the actors were in they were sat down like regular customers and you didn't know which one was which. So the idea was that everybody was supposed to be a suspect, and then you try to piece together the clues that are given to you by detectives and you talking to other people, and then you're trying to figure out which of the people at dinner are actually a part of it, are like legit suspects.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it was kind of interesting. And so because of that, the team was pretty small, the team of actors, but it felt like a bigger production because of that. It was okay. Yeah, I think it was fun. The case was fun. The writing was amusing. It had a lot of like dumb jokes in it. Um, the food was not great. It was a hotel. It was like at a hotel, so I think the food was
Mm.
kind of like an afterthought. It was basically just for the novelty of it.
Yeah,
But
I was gonna say the food at ours wasn't. anything to write home about either. Like my wife and I are just going to dinner, but we're going to like a nice steakhouse on Saturday, so that'll be our better dinner. Last night we just
Yeah.
literally did pizza, but I literally went to the store and like if you go to a grocery store near Valentine's, chocolate covered strawberries are everywhere. But when you look at the
Yeah.
strawberries themselves, they're all the ones that look like they're almost like white. So they look like crappy
Yeah.
strawberries. I mean, at least in Texas, you never know where produce is coming from. But I went through at least the produce section, found some real Ghirardelli, and I just dipped some at home and they turned out a lot better, I think. So
Nice.
chocolate
Cool.
covered strawberry is just a simple pizza just around here. It was a place we hadn't tried, so we talked about that.
You get laid?
Really?
Well, it's Valentine's Day. It's a related question. Is it not? Is it not related?
I
Is
mean,
that
it's
not a
related, but that's usually not something we talk about on the show. So,
Oh, I see, okay. Alright, well, does the phrasing matter? If I say, "Did you make love?" Does
the
that change
phrasing does
any
not matter.
doesn't change it at all? Doesn't
No,
change it? Okay.
that
Alright,
is
well, good to know.
that
Look, I don't know
is.
the rules. Nobody taught me protocol. I was raised by wolves, alright? I don't know what you're allowed to ask. I'm just a guy out here asking
I
questions.
just tend to keep those. That is the tamest way Travis could have asked it. That was chat right
See?
there.
I did it really casually, and I was hoping that you
Just
would slip through an answer before you noticed what I was asking. That
no,
was my hope. You'd
definitely.
be like
Are you
you'd be
trying
like,
to
"You
are
get
you
laid?"
trying to
And
be
you're
like
like,
the How I
"Yeah."
Met Your like the lawyer? And you'd be like, ask him this question. This one. All right, this one. Ask him fast. Did you get laid? Wait, what?
Yeah, I'm trying to oh, yeah, I was hoping you'd slip through an answer, and then we'd get a little, Ebontis scoop, but turns out he's a pretty private guy, people, even
Try
though
and
he's a
keep some
streamer.
stuff. Try and keep. I. That's the balance. I try and keep some stuff private, so it's just kind of how some of that goes.
Nah, man. No, let it all out. Describe it in grotesque detail.
I don't think we're on YouTube anymore when that happens. I think we're on.
That's
We
what the
got it.
viewers want.
If you guys want to move the entire podcast over to OnlyFans, we can talk about stuff over there. But that's a different subscription method,
You
and
have an
we'll.
OnlyFans? Real
No,
question.
I have an Only
You don't?
Calves, just not OnlyFans.
You don't have OnlyFans?
No,
Because some Destiny creators have OnlyFans.
I'm sure they do.
We know one of them. You had him on the show.
Uh,
IRL Titan. He made an OnlyFans.
Oh, he finally did? I honestly
Yeah,
wondered if he finally did. I feel like he
yeah,
joked
he
about
did.
it when we had him on a long time ago.
I think he actually did because I saw him promoting it on Twitter, and I was like, "Good
Oh.
for him, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Good
a
for
few
him."
that I've seen,
A few
yeah,
that you subscribe to.
no.
Yeah, makes sense.
There's a few content creators I've seen be like, "Hey, if you wanna see the other side of my stuff, go to this Twitter account," and it's like, "Oh, okay, that's over there." There's enough
Yeah,
random stupid people that follow you on Twitter once you're at a certain size, you're like, "Oh, look, somebody I've never heard of following me on
yeah.
Twitter," and you have 1 follower and yeah, it's just all BS. I know.
By the way,
That's
Fastest Chicken had a better idea. I should have asked how your loot drops were on Valentine's Day. I feel like that would've got me an answer. How were your loot drops?
my loot drops.
Good.
They were
Let's just say
solid.
I got an exotic. Yeah.
There you go. What about you? Did you have good loot drops on Valentine's since you're an
I
open
had
book?
great dude, every day. Great loot drops every
Great loot
day.
drops every day.
10 out of 10, you know I do.
I mean, are
Hardcore.
you going hunting for loot alone or co-op? I mean, that's the question.
For me,
Yeah, you don't have
like
to
a
answer this. This is why
I'm
the
gonna call it
podcast
I'm gonna
goes too
call it I'm
far.
gonna call it big team battle. Let's just call it that, the way I go.
Please don't. Please don't call it that. I do believe I'm gonna have to mark this podcast explicit, possibly, just in case to be safe.
Like a Tupac album. I like it.
Something. Yeah. Well, so Valentine's, dinner now, dinner later, all that stuff. Sadly, we all had you, me, Cog, all of us had a rough Sunday. Sunday, it was a good game, but I will tell you, the end of it was just kind of sucked. Um,
Yeah, I mean, the way it ended was brutal, but both teams played great. That extra point, I'm gonna lose sleep over
uh,
for sure.
I mean,
But,
it was at least blocked and not missed, so that's one where,
yes, true.
like, that's one of those to
It
where,
was it was well, he didn't have to kick it that low. He could have kicked it way more
yeah.
vertical because he was so close.
But I mean, it's like
Uh,
I heard it somebody somewhere. I can't remember who said it. It's like it never comes down to one single play. Now, granted,
yeah,
it's
it's
always a
because
combination of a
they
whole lot of things.
they would have run for it instead of doing a field goal and maybe got a touchdown. Maybe it wouldn't even have gone into
Right. Well, I
overtime,
mean,
but,
that would be the other thing is if
yeah.
they deferred, since both teams actually have a chance at it, they would have known what they would have needed to do, and then defense could have changed. But also, they said the defense needed a break because they were just on the field, so they may have scored anyway.
Yeah, they did need a
It's
break.
so like it's
You
a
could tell they were
whole
getting worn down.
yeah. I
Also, we
mean,
had
both
so many
teams fought
injuries.
really hard, and it was man
Yeah.
losing Greenlaw so early that sucked. That because him and
Yeah.
Warner in the middle would have been one of them probably would have had a better eye on Mahomes, who started just booking it up the field. But yeah, unfortunately, and
Mahomes is a
then
goat. If you're gonna lose to someone, lose to them,
yeah, I was
and,
gonna say Mahomes
I
will
honestly
make
our
his
our
legacy.
draft setup is so damn good for next year. I think we're probably gonna go to the Super Bowl again. Hopefully, we'll win it this time.
Yeah.
I just wanna break
I'll
up
just be
Taylor
curious
Swift,
salary
man.
cap wise if they can keep a lot of the players that they need to. I'll be curious if we lose any with salary cap issues. That's the only thing I heard might be a
Mm.
problem. But I mean, halftime was good.
Isn't
Game was close
isn't
though.
Purdy still, like, the lowest paid
I think they've got
person in the
Purdy for like
NFL?
2 more years at the most ridiculously cheap contract ever. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Um.
Crazy.
Yep. So got a long time until that, and for KU, my Jayhawks in basketball seem to have definitely ups and downs. So I don't have a whole lot of hope for them in the NCAA March Madness stuff, but they won the whole damn thing last year or two ago. So I think they've probably had their due for a little while. But yeah, we've been playing a lot of games. I think the first one we should start out with chronologically is where the week actually started is Banishers. And
Banishers.
we
It's
both
been a
dropped
few weeks since I played that game, but I
for
will try to
you.
remember
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Mine was a little fresher, but yeah. So you got your code earlier. I think you were wrapping up your review by the time I was nearly starting mine. So, do you want me to kind of go through a little bit of
Um, I can give you kind of the summary of what I remember, and then I'll fill it in with color when you tell me your more recent thoughts. But
yeah,
yeah, I gave it a 7, which means good, not great. The things that are good about it is the story, the writing, the characters. It usually looks pretty good. And the ghost, you play a ghost detective in that, kind of a Geralt of Rivia type character. And the ghost detective stuff, like the cases you work and the mechanics for investigation, are really cool. The stuff that it doesn't do as well, it has the really bad story pacing that is really common in games these days, where everything has to be really slow and characters whisper to each other as they walk around and crawl through crevices. I also, of course, announced my new genre in the games
yes,
industry, crevice crawlers, which is a big deal. So watch my review if you have no idea what I'm talking about. But yeah, the crevice crawler genre is sure in full effect on this one. And then the combat is also pretty weak. And usually with a game like God of War, where even if I'm annoyed by the pacing and how long it takes to tell a story that I think is not worth the time that they spent on it, um, the combat carries me through because those games are really good combat games and they can kind of keep you engaged over a long period of time. And I don't think this has that as much. It gets better as you go. You start out with a really basic system and then it kind of gets more complicated and you can definitely have fun with it, but it
yeah,
definitely never reaches the heights or complexity. Also, the enemy variety is really, really bad. Like really bad the whole game. You're fighting like wolves, which really bothers me. Bothers me in all these games actually. But kind of the reason it doesn't go higher than a 7 mostly is that it just doesn't do a whole lot new and it doesn't do a whole lot better than I've seen it done elsewhere. And so as you know, E, that's I'm a stickler for that. I'm
yeah. You
like
want
a I'm
you
a
want
show me
novel
something new
ideas.
guy.
Yeah, you want.
I want
I would.
novel ideas. I don't like it when games just copy one another, and this definitely parrots its contemporaries. It feels like very much like they like the kind of Sony style third person, uh, two sad people whispering to each other uh, story. And
Hey,
if
it
you like
wasn't
those
Sad
games,
Dad though. They didn't go
it
Sad Dad.
wasn't sad dad. It was sad lovers, which is a
Yes.
nice unique twist. But yeah, they had they have that. So if you really enjoy these types of games, God of War, Plague Tale,
Yeah, it's like it's
Last of
Focus.
Us, yeah,
Well, it's
it's
Focus
good
and
at
Don't Nod who did Plague Tale and Life is Strange, and you can kind of
yes,
pair that with
respectively.
action
Mhm.
combat. So it's like you've got a lot of that stuff
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, yeah. So it just it takes from a lot of its contemporaries and it does it not as well, but it does have a unique story, characters. It is a breath of fresh air in that sense. It's a new IP, which is awesome. Does a cool like alternate history thing. So I give it a 7 out of 10, which at IGN means you should play this one. You should buy it, you should play it. I definitely recommend it. Um, but yeah, it's not going to change your life. It's not that sort of breakthrough game or anything like that.
Fair.
It's fun though. I had fun with it. I'm glad I played it.
Yeah. So for me, same thing. And I think it's one of those that when it starts, you get a feeling that they're really setting up kind of the environment where it is. I mean, you're in 1695 in the northern North American wilds, is the vague way they describe it. It seems like New England, very specifically.
It's
Um,
Boston, yeah.
So when you get into that like mindset and then you start seeing some of the things that are said and then they mention stuff like Puritans, the way they kind of remind you of some of the terrible ways history treated a lot of different things. They actually I think embrace that pretty well between whether it was like war or sickness or any of those kind of things. Um, I think they did a really good job of kind of like diving into that whole just environment and world time frame, I thought. Uh, as for the environmental the physicality of the environment, like how you move around, the way the crevice crawler and stuff like that that you wanna say, when I was doing my review, I actually ended up being very torn between a 7 and an 8 because specifically it was the stories that I enjoyed, and I think if you get into these types of games, like even for me, like Plague Tale: Innocence, I haven't played Requiem, so, put a pin in that for another day. But in
Requiem's awesome.
Innocence yeah, Innocence for me, it was definitely a stealth game, but it again, the story was there, but it was kinda one of those that if you enjoyed the story, but the stealth I didn't really enjoy that much, and depending on how it goes, same thing here. It's if you're going to enjoy the story and how it sits with you. For me, the story and the decisions, I think, were what were interesting because for the ghosts, when you did all these haunting investigations, as a banisher, you're judge, jury, and executioner because you get to decide what is going to happen, and you have 3 options. You can either blame an individual who is among the living, because to set all this up, by the way, you have Red and you have Antea. Very early on in the game, this isn't a spoiler because the previews cover this. Antea dies by, unfortunate events, and then you basically run into her after you survive those bad events as a ghost. Well, Banishers have one creed and it says life for the living, death for the dead. Well, as a Banisher, you're not supposed to have a ghost just like hanging around. But in turn, it's also your lover and partner in life that you're trying to decide what you're going to do. And your choice is, do you want to blame these living individuals, steal their life essence to by murdering them, but use that essence eventually to bring her back? Or do you want to make, just any number of decisions, but eventually probably choose to ascend Antea into the afterlife and kind of leave this world peacefully? When you get to one of the early investigations in the first main area, like the Dark Woods, I think it's called. When you get to one of them in there, it's the one I used in my review as an example. There's 3 different ways you can go. You have somebody who took an oath to do something who completely went against that. You have but they're doing it for their family. So you're like, okay, how far will you go for family? And then you have this pompous playboy turd of a dude, and then you're just like, well, this guy's eventually going to make his future fiance sick with a very terrible disease in that era. Or do you just try and make peace and send him off into a more happy afterlife? And you can go any of the different ways, and all of them go that way. And that's just the side quest. When you get to some of the bigger ones and you get some more of the reasoning behind them, especially when you get into the main arc, the crap that they did to the main, like, antagonist or however you want to call it, the main character involved in the big story arc, the stuff that was done to her was terrible. So as you're
Yeah.
watching all of this go along, it's like how nice you can be as mean, as judgmental, benevolent, totally up to you. And I actually kind of appreciated there's also apparently like 5 endings, which I did not go look up to
Yeah.
see what they are. Um, and I kind of appreciated
And
that.
you can kind of imagine how they all go though, because
Yeah.
they kind of tell you right at the beginning, like, "Hey, here's the different options you have and how it's going to end."
Yep. Um, but just like the way the combat, somebody else said this too. The combat, I think while it was serviceable to the story to get you through it, and the boss fights were at least kind of interesting because they didn't so much repeat themselves. They had a different kind of setup to them. I mean, they had some repetitive mechanics, but it was very distinct looks. It's not like here's a kind of a copy and paste. The bosses were generally distinct. The combat itself, it's weird to fight a ghost as anything physical or even ghost to ghost combat, which you can do because you're punching a wisp. It's just so there's not a whole lot of feedback to combat, which was weird to me. And that was one of those things I haven't said in my head early on was when you're slashing a sword at a spirit, what are you going to feel? What are you actually doing? Yes, you're a banisher, you have your firebane, so you can do something with that, but it's weird to just slash at a ghost and you kind of do damage to him, but it's a little odd. But I think the one thing that actually set me off a little bit, which is just one of those things you kind of have to get over, where I did part of my review recording explaining all the go over this hill or squeeze through these rocks or whatever it is, that example, there's a shelter and you squeeze through like a little wooden area and then it's in the woods area in the beginning. You squeeze out of the little shelter area and then you're here. And then there's either like a stone thing that you can go over or there's another rock thing you can squeeze through over here. And you can walk over to the little stone thing, stand right in front of it, see enemies and shoot them and nothing happens. So it's just because you're not in the encounter, but you can see the enemies, you're not in combat. So they just use it's the level design, and that's one of those where I think the level design leaning so much into because then as soon as you get outside of there, you can squeeze through another set of rocks and go down a cave, or you can go around a corner to the left and you can kind of duck under the slow walking. So there's like 5 of them in one little area where I did that review, and I was like, this is probably one of the worst. Yeah, I can do some longer runs through areas, but the fact the when it was I was standing right next to the thing that you would hop over, and I was out of combat and could not hurt them until I crossed over it. That was one of those I'm going, "All right, come on." Because that's one to where and that was why for me, it's like the combat and stuff had its issues. Like I ended up enjoying the musket reload animation. I picture like Terminator 2 when he's like on the motorcycle and he reloads it with one arm. And you're like, I don't even know if you can physically do that with a shotgun, but it's cool looking. I've never seen a musket reloaded cooler than in this game. He like just kind of throws it in and then just does like the one arm reload animation, and then you're good to go. And I'm just like running around doing that in combat. I was like, okay, for a musket, but he's a merc. I'll give him this. It was just kind of one of those fun moments. I don't know. For me, I was torn between a 7 and 8 for a score. And I kept trying to decide because I wanted to pick a number. I wasn't just gonna do a 7.5 that felt like a cheap way out. I try to go off the IGN score because typically there's something in those words that you guys use to describe the ratings that will somehow resonate with me. And this is one of those
Yeah.
rare moments where I'm reading between the 2 and I'm really torn, but for some reason in my head, it was like, I think and that's kind of why in my review, I showed the example that I tried not to spoil here. I showed the example and I said, "Hey, if you wanna see an example of an investigation, this is what you're getting into. It just gets deeper and some of the stuff is a lot bigger." If you're gonna like the stories, and I think for the person who enjoys the focus, the don't nod, those type of games, I think it's gonna rank higher, and the combat is serviceable enough, especially if you don't do it on high difficulty, that nothing is going to, like, really punish you that bad to where it's gonna take away from the story, but it doesn't add to it. I ended up probably going, like, 7.51, so I ended up saying an 8 to me, and mostly I think it was because for some reason saying it was good didn't quite feel right. Great felt a little weird too, but I'm like, if I have to go one way, I tipped it just a little higher. Because when you go through the story and you've got Antei and read through this and just the choices, it was kind of just a gut one on that. I was between them, but it was just kind of a gut decision at that point. It's
Mm.
hard to justify either way for me. So I enjoyed
Interesting.
it. I had a good time. Um, and the fact that you can go back, you've got like combat encounters where you can kind of go through the 10 levels to unlock more stuff. If you lean into, I think you leaned into the switches. Is that what you said? The switching?
I leaned into, my build was basically increase how long my cooldowns last.
That's right.
Take the abilities that make me more powerful, but make my cooldowns for powers longer, and then take all the buffs that make me stronger when I have more powers that are in cooldown. So my cooldowns were extremely long, but when I used the power did way more damage,
Yeah.
and then while I was in cooldown, I would, like, do, 80% more damage and, like, all this other stuff, so I was just like a beast without powers, and then when I did use powers, they were crazy, so
Yeah. I
kind of
think,
like a just a cannon, really,
Yeah.
DPS machine.
And I think that's kind of what helped me a little as well. The moments of the level design, especially that one example where there's just so much of it crammed together, I got used to it. I was like, "Yep, I'm gonna shimmy through another wall." But it was like even when you're in another worldly plane, which I'll just say that without saying too much, even when you're there, and I'm going, all right, does these things don't have to be here? The shimmy around the edge or the shimmy under the rock, like
Yeah,
they are everywhere. If you can get past that, then you can get around like combat that doesn't have the best feedback to it. I think the fact that you've got like the skills and the gear that actually can give you like builds in a game like this, I never even expected it. And I think they just gave enough to gear options when you find different items. Like I found lifesteal on one of mine, so I never hardly healed at all, which was kind of crazy. And then
nice.
paired with the skills where everything is a choice. Again, it is a game about choice. Every skill is one or the other as you go through all the skills. So it was just kind of a combination. I don't know. I think for some people the game will resonate very well, and I think for some people, if they don't want to go through that kind of slower story and character development, it's not going to hit. So I'm like, I could understand a 6 to an 8, or like maybe like if you get up to a 9, you must just love every moment of lore and story. 6 to an 8, I can see it either way though. I tipped a little high. I was like, I'm like 7.51, but if I'm rounding, I rounded it up because for the story, I thought each one of the stories that you would investigate, they were an interesting journey to go on. Just a different type of game. So that's
IGN style, since we switched to the 10-point system, is if you are even if you're a 7.9, that's a 7.
really
Yeah, because it doesn't quite become great. It can be really good, but that's still a 7 if it's
okay.
a
That I guess
7.9.
that would be an
Not great.
interesting way to phrase it then. Like
Yeah,
it's
if it's not great, then the reason we do that for multiple reasons, A, it's more accurate because you can just say in the review that you really liked it while also pointing out the stuff that doesn't make it great,
yeah,
but also because it protects, the 10s. Nothing's a 10 unless it is a perfect 10,
that's
not a
fair. And
9.5,
yeah,
not a
those are
9.9.
masterpieces. Yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's a good system, but yeah, I mean, obviously, it's all opinion. All this is
oh, of
subjective. My
course.
my main my main point is really none of that stuff. I liked the game just fine. It's really just that like that feeling of like knowing exactly what the game's going to be like.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Moment you start playing it, you're like, I know exactly what this game's going to be like from start to finish, and there are not really any surprises there.
Yeah.
So
And I haven't
yeah,
played as many of those as you probably have, so they're a little maybe more fresher to me. Out of eyes looking, but
yeah,
so yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
You didn't play Plague
Banishers.
Tale, right?
Yeah, I
It
didn't do
seems because
Requiem.
that was the difference. I gave Requiem an 8, and it's because it kind of has almost the same story, or not the same story, but the same formula as this one, except I mean, it doesn't really have to rely on combat because it is a stealth game, but it had more unique stuff in it, like the rat swarms flying all over the place and all that stuff. That was just like really unique and new. So it was cool.
Yeah, I think that was the thing about me is when I played Plague Tale Innocence, and maybe it's just because I appreciate the combat more. The stealth was fine in Innocence to me, but it was just kind of one of those depending on how you handled stealth. Either it wasn't that challenging, or in the moments that it was annoying. Stealth is
Yeah,
not an easy thing to do well, and I get that, but
especially the first
there
one
was
for sure.
no,
The sequel is a lot better in that regard.
and that might be why that justifies an 8.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
so
probably would have also given a 7 to the original. Although I don't know, 7 was just so surprising to me because I really was not expecting that game to be what it was, especially when you get to the later part of the game and the game completely takes a 180. I don't know if you finished
Requiem
it, but
for which one?
the first one the first one
Oh,
gets
Innocence?
crazy in the end.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
when you get to the end and kinda like the church and the tornadoes, and is that what you're
Yeah,
think
dude,
yeah,
it gets crazy
gets a
because at
little
first you're just like,
weird.
"Oh, it's a little weird, it takes place during the plague," and then you're like, "No, this is supernatural. Something's going on here,
Well,
dude."
and then I heard that's one thing I remember hearing from at least 1 or 2 reviews of Requiem was that it took kind of the end of the first one and just kinda kept going. It made it even crazier. Um, I don't know. It was if you wanna play a game that has interesting choices, kind of moral gray areas, ambiguity, all that stuff, the decisions are gonna I would not a lot of people would probably make every decision the same, and I think that's always kind of a cool aspect that you can be presented a situation, and depending on what your life experiences are, you may side with the woman who wanted to protect her sister, or you may side with the, guy over here who the doctor ended up killing her. Like, it all depends probably on your experience where the choices go. Um,
Yeah.
I thought the sound design in the game, though, overall, I had like one bug where like background music played way too long at one point. Saved, came back, never happened again. But overall, just like the sound, especially of the bosses and some of the things, I thought it fit the world really well. I thought the sound was pretty good. Sound
I
design,
loved the,
music,
puppeteer boss fight. That was cool.
yes.
The sound design in that arena and the creature and how they reveal it, I think that was my favorite part of the game. It was
That
cool.
was definitely a good one. And then just
Final boss
that's
was, boring though. It was like the same.
yeah.
I was expecting them to do something different. They were just like, "No, just fight her twice." It's like, "Alright, whatever."
So that is Banishers. About 30 minutes
Ghosts
into
of
this
New
thing.
Eden, Banishers,
Yeah, and I thought the voice
Scotsmen,
actors I thought the
Banishers.
guy this is funny, we had 2 different takes because I think I mentioned it to you before. I enjoyed Red's voice acting a little more than Antea, but for her character, hers fit, but I just enjoyed his more, and I think you actually told me you were flipped on that, right?
No, I liked both of the characters, and I thought their performances were good. I just thought Red was annoying because he was
Oh,
so whiny and emotional, and I was like, "Get over it, dude. Just get over it."
yeah. But yeah, the voices all the way through when you get to depends on which order you go. There's a large governor guy.
Yeah,
That guy
he's
fit
portly.
his portly yeah, he fit his voice actor, but man, you just wanna hate him so much, and it's always one of those it's a good actor playing something right, and always my prime example is Dolores Umbridge in Harry Potter, Lady in Pink. Absolutely hate her to this day, even watching the movie, and I've seen that woman in other stuff, but it's like, in that movie, you wanna hate her so bad, and I'm like, "You did a great job acting because I hate you." And that's one of those moments, and I was like, that guy was so high on his own supply in this game, and I was just really tired of his
Yeah,
Puritan ideologies and stuff. I'm like, "Dude, you suck. You're fitting, but you suck." That kind of moment.
yeah.
So, but yeah,
Yeah.
yep, it's an interesting one. Definitely a journey I recommend taking. Same with Travis. Second one we do want to talk about is Skull and Bones. Now, you've spent more
Yeah.
time, so I will kind of do my intro lead in, and I will pass it off to you. So,
I'll
Skull,
say I've done more time. I think I'm at 70 hours in Skull and Bones.
way more time than me.
Yeah, so you can watch my review or read my review in progress on IGN now, but
Yeah.
that was after 30 hours after the beta before I had gotten my hands on the full game.
Yep.
I've now beaten the game. I've gotten pretty deep into the end game. I am pretty much done with all the stuff I need to play. I'm probably gonna still play it though. I don't need to, but I'm probably gonna still keep playing it because I'm having a good time with it. But yeah, my review in progress was basically there's something here. I think it might be good. I'm not sure how the end game's gonna look, but I'm liking where I'm at right now. And basically, I think the thing everybody needs to know about this game is that it is more similar to Forza Horizon than it is to Sea of Thieves. And I think that's where people kind of get hung up because they look at this game and they go, "Oh, it's probably gonna be like Assassin's Creed Black Flag." And it's really not. I mean, the ship to ship combat is almost identical to Black Flag. It's actually a much better version of what Black Flag had. But it is not a pirate game in the most strict sense. It is a ship-based pirate game where you commit acts of piracy and then do illegal black market trades and stuff like that. But it's not a game where you're going to be swashbuckling or shooting blunderbusses or battling skeletons or anything like that. In this game, you play a ship in the same way that you play a car in Forza Horizon. It is Fastest Chicken is asking, is it PvP exclusive or is there PvE aspects as well? It is a PvE co-op game. It has the very, very smallest pieces of PvP in it, but it is not a PvP game. And if you're wondering why you thought it was a PvP game, it's because when this game was announced 7 years ago, it was announced as a 5v5 PvP game, like For Honor, right? Another Ubisoft game that was supposed to be a PvP only game. And actually, For Honor had a PvE aspect, but it was basically non-existent. Um,
Yeah,
this
that
is
was
a open world game that you can play by yourself, or you can play with up to 2 other friends for a crew of 3. And you go around and you do fully ship-based adventures together. You raid fortresses from the coastline, you destroy other ships, you smuggle things and ferry things back and forth. You gather supplies and use them to build new ships. But the only time you actually spend any time on land is when you are in a social space where you walk around as your pirate avatar and there is no gameplay there. It's the same thing as
0.
Destiny, the tower. You're going to the tower, and that's the only time that you're actually walking anywhere, is when you're at the tower. So it really is like it's Forza Horizon, man. It's an open world map where you're going around and you're playing as a vehicle and you're performing jobs and getting things done. It's just instead of races, this one is piracy. And if you can get over that it's not Black Flag, it's actually a good game. It is good. Like, I'm having fun with it. Playing it with friends is great. One of the things about this game that is very surprising to me is that its build crafting is, like, better than Destiny's. Like, you can actually build full builds in this game. Like, they have,
I know there's a lot of different
outlined.
ship types. Like you can get
Yeah,
classes of ships that'll do. Some are faster, some are tankier. I know
yeah.
there's that kind of thing.
You get classes, but then on top of that, you can build into different builds. So there's like a tank build where you make your ship really good at being immune to damage and also make yourself a bigger threat to other ships so that they target you, like in an MMO. There's DPS builds where you can like do damage over time with like a fire ship, or you can do an explosion ship that is all focused on making things blow up. And then you can do a support ship as well. There's ships that shoot cannons that heal other players, and you can shoot mortars that create big pools of healing effect and stuff like that. And then as a team, you have to take on increasingly more difficult stuff. And the end game is really the only part that seems to more or less require multiplayer. But you can also just play with people out in the world, like that you just encounter organically. You don't have to be rolling with them as a crew. Although I recommend rolling as a crew because it's a lot more fun. Um, but yeah, really, it's just if you can get over the fact that it's a purely ship-based game and that it's not Assassin's Creed, that it's a more like a Forza game, it's a lot of fun. And the PvP elements that are there are pretty cool. Like I was telling Ebontis before this, there's like a thing in the end game where you start a black market empire and you basically have to compete with other players to take over certain ports, and once you win a sort of contest or whatever, you gain control over that port and you can use it to automate the process of making you materials. And then uh, when you go by to collect the materials from your different ports, sometimes they'll give you the currency, and it's the best currency in the game. You can buy the craziest items using it. You can just take it, or they'll make you an offer and say, let's go double or nothing. We'll give you double the amount of currency. But if you're not able to take it and deposit it at a specific island that's a certain distance away, then you get nothing. Right. And then it sends a whole bunch of NPC boats that are high level to go and hunt you. It like drops them on the map and like makes them look for you. And then it also puts a big banner over every other player's screen, letting them know that you are huntable. And it pinpoints you on the map. And it goes, he's here. Go and kill him if you want. And they're incentivized to kill you because they can take all of the coin you're carrying and then deposit it themselves and they get to keep it. And I just tried that. I've done it a couple times, but this was the first time I tried it. And actually, a whole bunch of players showed up. There were like 6 other boats hunting me at a certain point, and we were killing each other. And I dropped my coin, and they picked it up, and then I killed them and got it back, and was able to deposit it. And it went on for like an hour. It was like an epic battle where I was being hunted by NPCs and also other players, and it was just kind of like an all out brawl. And it was very fun.
Hmm.
So it's got some cool stuff like that, but the PvP is basically limited to very specific little mini events. And when you're out in the world, normally you can't attack other ships. You can shoot at them and it does nothing. And you cannot steal from other players or do anything like that. It has a very, very specific small pockets of PvP, which is weird because it is a pirate game, and you would think that stealing and backstabbing would be a big part of it. but it is not a big part of it. It is mostly about cooperation and having fun with your friends. Yeah, I think the reason this game is gonna struggle, and it is gonna struggle, let's be honest, it's going to, is because, nobody really knows what this game is, and I don't think Ubisoft advertised it well at all. I think they kind of just let people believe it was gonna be Black Flag 2, and it's not that at all.
Well,
It
if
is
you
a
followed this close, it's
full-on
been in
pirate.
development
Yep,
hell for
yeah.
ever. Like, I don't
10
know,
years,
10 years
10
was
years.
it? I was gonna say like
2013.
7 or 8, but 10.
2013 is when they started working on it, or
Yeah.
2014, something like that, but
The
it's
opening
been
credits have like 12 different studios involved. It's changed hands a bunch of times. And I think as you said, they've settled on something pretty good. Like it give you want to do and it's a balance of early on, it's going to be a little bit slower because you are going to shorelines, you're doing your little farming mini games where like, hey, you need certain types of wood and you also need maybe some ore to be able to level up your ship and also unlock different types of ships. So as you go along the coastline, you stop at like some trees, and then you do this little like timing mini game. And that's did the games ever change? Are they just timing mini games the whole time? Is there any variety to
Uh,
those? Just hit the
no,
green
they're
section.
the same. Yeah, you just hit it at the right time.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, it's like if the early part is probably going to be slow as you work on that, but it does sound like. But when even early on, because I've played the open beta and the closed beta was nearly the same. You'll go out into some open water and you've got to take out a certain number of ships for the blacksmith or something like that. It's a very early quest. And then when you get into combat, you're like, okay, I'm going to go try and take on these couple of ships, but their buddies are over here. And then all of a sudden you take out a couple of those. And the boarding animation, everybody throws their hooks with ropes on and you kind of board them. You get extra loot by doing that. Nothing really happens because you don't actually board them. But depending on how many of those ships you tick
You
off, then all
board
of a
them, you just don't get to play
yeah, you don't
the
get to
combat.
play. You
Yeah,
just it says you boarded them, and then they sink, and
yeah.
you get their loot.
Well, it helps you because as you pointed out, you get more materials, but it also can, let you kill somebody. It's kind of like triggering an animation in a Destiny, an execution,
Like a
where you
finisher.
kill
Yeah,
them
yeah, yeah.
you kill them before their health is fully gone,
Yep.
and also you, you become immune while you're doing it. So
Yeah.
it's a good way to get out of a tight spot. So, yeah.
So, yeah, those but when you get into that, and then all of a sudden 3 of those other buddies start going after you, and then you're kinda trying to speed up and flank them a little bit and unload on the explosive part of their ship. You're like, "Oh, the combat actually feels pretty good." And that's kinda one of those things that sinks in early. I don't know, like, if you got into the whole commodity trading much or if you let that go because I saw those
Oh, yeah.
they looked
That
marginal, or is
becomes
that a big deal?
Oh, no, it's a pretty big deal. If you find a place that is selling them for cheap and then another place that's buying that material for high, you can do crazy, crazy stuff, and then later in the game, in the end game, they make that trading and routes, except for it's not the same commodities, it's black market items. That matters a ton because then you're like actually using the trade routes to connect your empire and ship things back and forth, and you get bonuses. And I mean, it gets crazy. It kind of has like an element of like city sim to it, or you know
Okay,
what I
it's
mean?
almost
Because
yeah, where you're
you're like
connecting
doing like yeah, you're doing this thing where you're trying to grab certain pieces of real estate and then, at certain trade routes and controlling supply and, making money that way. So it's just it's weird that they advertised this game the way they did because I feel like it would have been a hit if they advertised it to, like, people who are into Sims and multiplayer games. I because it just is that type of game. It's yeah, it's different.
yeah. Yeah, and that's kinda one of those I haven't played as much because I've been playing something else I've been working on that I can't tell you guys about until next week, I think I can talk about. But yeah, Skull and Bones
Nice.
is a weird amount of fun. Like, it's goofy, it's not gonna sit with everybody, um, but I think if you enjoy the idea of leveling up a pirate ship and using that for seafaring adventures, you can have a pretty good time. I would just
Yep.
go into it with now, I will say Ubisoft shot themselves in the foot, at least in the small Twitter community, when they're like, "Hey, this is a quadruple A whatever."
Terrible,
I hate
terrible, stupid thing to say.
yeah, I'm like,
So dumb.
this is not a real I mean, it looks pretty good, I will say, like, I'm playing at 4K 60, and, when
You
you got
can't
the
just call it a quadruple A game
no,
because it costs you so much.
right, that's the big thing.
You know what I mean?
It
Like, I
cost them
get
a
that
lot for 10 years.
it costs you 200,000,000 and you're never gonna make that money back. Agreed, but you can't just call it a quadruple A game because of that. It's still yeah, it's not if anything, if cost is what makes it a quadruple A game, then this still isn't a quadruple A game because I think like Halo Infinite cost about that much or something. It might have been
Yeah.
more. And like Grand Theft Auto is way more. How much is Grand Theft Auto?
Oh, the new one?
They
6?
gave the numbers. Grand Theft Auto 6. They gave a number. It
It's
was like
probably
a
a billion
ridiculous
dollar
budget.
budget. I would not be surprised. I
I think it
mean,
was a couple 100,000,000, but I think it was easily more than this game. It certainly will be by the time it came out.
well, I mean, if you picture that, what is the rumors that Spider-Man 2 was 250 or 3 million, and this they've had 10 years to sit there and work on online, and then between there they made Red Dead 2, and then for 6 or 7 years they've been making this game, but I don't know how big their studios, and they have just been printing money for so long. So it could be 500,000,000, easily one of the more expensive pieces of entertainment that's ever been created. I would imagine, at least for Grand Theft Auto 6. Grand Theft Auto 6 is one of the few things that I would consider probably calling a quadruple A, just due to its size, scale, budget, fidelity. I mean, everything in that is just going to be really, really high marks, and
Which game?
GTA 6. That's
Oh,
about
yeah.
the only thing I would consider at this point.
If they said it, I would be like, "Oh, okay, I'll give it to
Yeah,
them." I still don't really know what the purpose of saying that is, but
no.
fine, I'll give it to
Well, I
you,
think
yeah.
the other fun thing, and it's again a rumor they heard, but it's like, what if Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out and they're like, hey, the base price level is $100?
So, the, CEO of, I think, Take-Two
Yeah,
said something to that effect, and everybody freaked out. But I honestly just interpreted that, and if you look at the transcript or hear the way he said it, it's pretty obvious that he was just, like, speculating on, like, "Oh, yeah, no, games are too cheap because we provide so much value." He wasn't actually proposing, like,
right.
"Yeah, we're gonna charge you bucks." But also, they don't have to charge $100 for Grand Theft Auto because you will pay 500 for that game
That's
when
what I
they have
mean. It's like if they
they
just
play
said, hey,
online.
instead of $70, we know you guys are going to play this game for. I would. They're the only ones who could get away with something like that, even if they were like, hey, the base game is 80. If they were just like, hey, this was bigger, this was.
But what I mean by they don't have to because you will pay 500, I mean, you will literally pay 500 regardless because GTA Online.
Oh,
That's
the
why they don't have
online
to charge
part,
you more.
yeah, that's
They don't
fair.
have to
But
charge you for the base game because you're going to buy so many of those damn shark cards that, they don't need to charge you
yeah,
a crazy amount.
they'll make it later as long as they do it right.
Yeah. They'll make
But
it
yeah.
back in they're still like the number like they make
Did
more
they sell
money
like
every month
five
than like
million
every game.
copies of GTA 5 in the past like month or quarter
Yeah,
or
like
something?
it's regularly one of the, best-selling games on Xbox's storefront, like,
Yeah.
every month, and it's been out since 2013,
It's
so
still, yeah, that game, I think they're
game's
at
quite great.
195 million copies or just something ridiculous. It's been on sale, it's been
Yeah.
so many different places, but yeah,
I
that
think
was
it's the
crazy.
2nd best-selling game ever, something like that. It's on the list.
195 million, the only thing that might have beaten it's what, Tetris, maybe?
Minecraft, I think, is up there.
Oh, that might be up there
Um,
too.
yeah. Tetris is only on there if you count all platforms,
Yeah.
which I think you might have to for, GTA as
Yeah,
well.
because it's been on PS3 and onward, so it's been.
Yep.
Yeah, so anyway, back to Skull and Bones. Ship Combat, check out some video reviews, get a feel for it. It might be one if you don't want to jump into. Now, I will say them not putting it on Steam and having it only on Ubisoft Connect is, again, not doing themselves any favors.
Number 1 is Minecraft. So you were right on the money about GTA 5, 195,000,000. Guess
Uh,
how many Minecraft has sold?
200 million. 500 million?
No, that's way too much.
275 million.
Close. 300,000,000.
A lot. That thing's on like,
They're they're
that thing's
they're
almost on
above
refrigerators and
GT
phones.
they're above GTA by 50%.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's wild.
But
And
Minecraft has
Tetris is
been
right below that.
cheap and everywhere. It's been on phones and refrigerators damn near like Skyrim has been. Grand Theft Auto has been a live service game that people have been paying money into for the past decade. Yeah, different financial success,
I'd be
I would
willing to bet
wager.
anything that actually, I don't think I'm comfortable making that bet. I was gonna say I'd be willing to bet you GTA 5 has made more money, but now that I think about
I
it,
bet it has. I bet it has.
I don't know, because now I'm thinking about all of the stuff that Minecraft does with its community. Like, there's a whole industry behind Minecraft now that I'm thinking
Well,
about it.
but there's not like the live service, the shark cards. There's no general support. If you
There
buy
is.
Minecraft,
No, there is.
But, like, what are you
My
buying?
b
You're not, like,
my
buying
boy hasn't played
skins.
Minecraft in a long
No, I
time.
haven't, but I'm
My
asking are there, like,
Minecraft
skins and
has
stuff you're paying for?
Minecraft has this thing called Minecraft Marketplace where it's not just skins, but user created content. It's basically like Roblox, and people
Uh,
make entire campaigns in it. Like, people made a Dungeons& and Dragons campaign where you play through an entire, like, RPG story in Minecraft, and you buy the D&D campaign for, like, $5 or something like that. But they have a ton of those, and, like, Ebontis, when I say that there's a lot on there, it's unfathomable how much is on there. It's
okay,
unbelievable.
those are the 2
So
pinnacles of gaming success
yeah,
then. They both have
yeah, that's it.
yeah, we would have to get financials, which we'll never see all the details on, but yeah, they both made plenty of money.
And then Wii Sports is always number 4 after Tetris,
Well, yeah, because the Wii
but
sold
I
so
think
many, it
that
was
one's
a
cheating.
pack-in. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I think it's cheating. It's bundled.
but
It's
I will
yeah,
say also, I think one of the biggest populations of humans has probably experienced Wii Sports versus everything
that's
else. You
true.
you might have bought GTA a couple of times over the course of generations and paid shark cards as a single individual. I think Wii Sports might have had the biggest population experience because it was you who bought it, and then probably your grandmother and your parents who played it too. It's like a really wide experience for Wii Sports. So it's like while the pack-in is kind of a thing, it needs a little bit of credit. Wii Bowling still goated, absolutely. Wii Bowling is awesome. I love I think it was Wii Sports was the second one. Anyway, when you got to like the big, when you had to hit 100 pins and it got to the big bowling games, those were a
Yeah,
blast. Like the normal bowling was fun, but then when I found like the 11 pins and 22 and 30, and when it got to be the bigger and bigger sets, those were actually really fun to go against. No, Wii
that's
Bowling's a
cool.
blast. Yeah, Ubisoft, they just, yeah, poor marketing. Pricing is probably not where it needs to be. It's only on Ubisoft Connect on PC. It's not on Steam, which it should be. They're just, yeah, they could have given themselves a better chance with some better marketing decisions, I think, overall. But yeah, that's unfortunately gonna make their losses probably more than they wish they were on their quadruple A game. But then they say words like that, and you're like, you're not helping yourself.
Single tier.
Control.
Well, I hope Skull and Bones does good because they have a full year of live service planned out, and it is pretty robust plan. And I hope the game is successful. I mean, I have a feeling it's not going to do great, but I hope it does because I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah. So, it had to come out eventually because the Singaporean government said, "Hey, we're gonna fund your game, and you eventually have to make it."
Apparently,
Yep,
apparently,
that was the one that it seems to be. It's like it probably as many delays as it went through. That's I think the only reason it came out because they've canceled way too many things for it to still
yeah.
make it across the finish line.
Everyone in Singapore gets one copy.
Yeah,
Government mandate.
there you go.
It's going to have a massive install base.
Yep. So the third game that we've been playing, at least amongst other things, has been Helldivers.
Yes.
Now, Helldivers is it is Starship Troopers the game, but in all the best ways that you could think of. The opening
True.
cinematic to intro you into the game, the little things when you have to like reload or heal yourself, it's like, oh, I'm injecting myself with democracy. It's just, it is all ridiculously over the top. But then when you start getting into the loop of combat and you see the visuals, while it has some issues, it definitely had some launch issues with servers. I've had a couple of crashes so far. It is a fun one, and it's got a lot. I'm guessing they're probably gonna add a whole other, like, enemy race on somewhere on that on the whole radar at some point that you're gonna be
You play
going
Helldivers
against.
1?
Do what?
You play Helldivers 1?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah,
I forget the name of it, but yeah, there was a third, so,
yeah.
um, but so far, as soon as you just start your first assault rifle and you start shooting, you're like, "Oh, this feels good." And then the destruction of the bugs and throwing a grenade and then calling down an orbital strike and just seeing all the different things you can do in this kind of goofy game. And what is it? $40 for the base, 60 if you want your bonus pack, but it's not required. Has some benefits, but it's not required. The $40, it's on PlayStation and Steam. And I think it cracked over 200,000 concurrent pretty early on. And when you start playing it, you kind of see why. It is just fun. And I think the co op, while you can definitely kill your buddies, the co op is easy enough to get into that it works for me. That was the biggest thing is I was like, I wanted to try some stuff solo, but I know it's gonna be better as a group because you got more people helping and you could have some sentries, but then you get into, different loadouts that people can use. And as you jump into co-op, it was pretty seamless and I was pleasantly surprised. Um, but yeah, Starship Troopers, the game, so far I've had bugs, and then I know there are automatons, which are going to be your robot enemies, different weapons with armor and stuff to attack each. But how much have you played, or have you had a chance to jump into it that much?
Yeah, I've played a bunch. I am making guides for IGN for it. So, yeah. I previewed this game before it was out, and have now played a whole bunch of it out in the wild. I really like it. It's got obviously I love comedy games, and it's very much got a very silly, satirical perspective, which I think is great. It's super fun. Killing your friends in accident is great. My main concern remains what it was when I previewed it, which is that I don't know that there's much meat on the bone, and I feel like it's going to be one of those games that rises and falls really quickly, and its fall will probably be as quick as its rise. And the reason I feel that way is because when I talked to the creator at the Sony studio, I asked him about his live service plans, and he told me that they are definitely going to be supporting the game, that it's live service, it has season passes, but that they don't have any hard live service follow up content drops planned right now, and that they're going to kind of wait for the community and see what the community wants and then build from there, which is a nice sentiment, but
But you're
also
behind the curve already.
way behind the curve. And
Yeah.
I was saying this like a couple days before the game came out, and then it came out, and then almost immediately their company tweeted that they are doing a hiring
Yeah, I
spree
thought I saw
because
that.
they need to wrap up, and I literally saw that news and I said, "I told you," like out loud to no one. I said, "I told you." Because yeah, they immediately found themselves in a situation where they need to create content quickly. And they are. They're gonna try to do that. And I obviously we've seen this before. Every live service game that has been a hit has dealt with this when they weren't prepared. They've tried to hire to create something as quickly as possible, and it never works out. They miss deadlines, and then eventually the game starts to lose its momentum. And so I'm worried that that'll happen to Helldivers because the foundation's awesome, but with only 2 factions and like a handful of procedurally generated objective areas, I
Yeah.
just don't know that it's going to have legs, unfortunately. And that's too bad because I really like the foundation they have. But yeah, I've been playing it a lot. I'm trying to get D to play it with me because we both love Earth Defense Force. And
Mhm.
in a weird way, this feels like the spiritual successor to EDF, just because it's like a super over the top, dumb bug killing game. But yeah, I really love it.
Yeah. I've played a little less than you, but I've been jumping in a lot in the last couple of days. And as you get into starting to unlock, a couple early unlocks start to make a difference. Then you see that you've got the ship upgrades, you've got the different stratagems. Then you can check out armor that's going to start to make a difference. Then you get a booster that you can use. Little things start adding up, and then you feel quickly more effective, especially depending on if you're playing with a group or you need to set things up. And then you get thrown a new enemy type, and then you've got to kind of throw a wrench into things. I think I heard somebody say it, but it was the idea that when you crank up difficulty, you've got more varieties of enemies and things coming at you as opposed to just spongy or tanky enemies. They give you a different variation of how things scale, which is appreciated because it doesn't always have to
Yeah.
be, hey, turn into bullet sponge equals higher difficulty. It's like, okay, well, you get more varieties of enemies that you have to take on at the same time. So you got to have different loadouts, kind of some coordination, different stratagems to take out the big things versus the small things.
Yeah. If they're wearing armor and they're just completely invulnerable until get a recoilless rifle through them.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So it's that idea is where I think they do have a good, and again, they're starting small at like $40. So if people jump in, have fun for 20 hours or so, and they say, hey, this is cool. Hopefully they get more later. That's the hard part though, I think nowadays too. I think you said it right, is it's cheaper. So I think people will feel better about spending $40, jumping in for 20 to 30 hours and be like, all right, I kind of exhausted what's here. And then when they do more, it's almost like they need to re-release it on stuff like this. If it's got some success, to say, hey, come back. They looks like they've got kind of a season pass in there when you buy the deluxe like I did. it's got the
Yeah.
season pass, but then is there enough in the basic season pass like that for a couple weapons and armor to give you anything fresh to make you come back outside of new factions
Yeah.
or new things? They're going to need a bigger
Or
influx
if
of
you,
content to
even
make it
if you
worthwhile.
like the season pass grind, just the loop of having to go to the same handful of biomes and planets to
Yeah.
just do the same objectives. 'Cause, even during my preview, I mean, we played for 3 hours there, and by the end, we were sort of looking around like, "Okay, are we gonna keep doing this?" 'Cause it is weird that there's no story.
Yeah,
It's
there's
weird
not much of a
yeah,
story. There's a preview, you are Helldivers, and that is it.
yeah.
Liberate democracy.
It's weird that it's missing the 3rd faction. There's just a few things. 7 years in development, I kind of expected there to be a little more meat on the bone, but the good news is, even though the portions are small, food tastes great.
I like that. Kind of a good way to phrase that. On the other side, well, I was gonna say, like, in comparison to, a game trying to be live service and stuff like that, you've got Suicide Squad right now, which I think peaked. I saw Tassie tweeted it peaked at 24 hours of a total of 2,000 people playing it in 24 hours, which is not good.
Womp womp.
Not for Rocksteady's big venture into live service and there's going to be the Joker thing, and I think that's the way it looks right now. Is I mean, this is I think that peaked at like 13,000 for, big $70 or $100 if you bought the early access or however much that whole thing was, depending on what you paid. And then you turn around and see that, hey, they're going to do a Joker thing, but they peaked at, almost the 20th, not quite, but, like a 15th of what Helldivers did. And Helldivers, this is fun, goofy experience that was, I don't know if it's cheaper to make if it had a 7-year development cycle. That sounds like a long time, but that sounds like they tried something and then probably tried something else in those 7 years because that's a long time to put into what we have right now. But yeah, it's
Yep. We
Suicide
got a
Squad.
couple live service games, and they've all got unique problems.
Yeah,
Helldivers is a hit and doesn't have a roadmap or content pipeline. Uh, and then Skull and Bones and, Suicide Squad both are not hits, seemingly, but they have really, really in-depth content roadmaps planned out,
yeah,
especially Skull and Bones. But yeah,
yeah,
it's very interesting 'cause, people looking from the outside who just don't know anything about live service, they just think, "Oh, live service game's bad." And that's certainly sometimes true, but really the thing that we're seeing in real time is that live service hard,
yeah.
and sometimes, if you don't have the roadmap planned, you're probably not gonna last very long, and even if you do have the roadmap planned, if your foundation's not good, if it doesn't catch on, you're kinda screwed, and then we have over in the corner Diablo 4 doing seemingly both of those things well and being a very successful live service game, so, it's interesting seeing this stuff go down.
Yeah,
Somebody should hire me as a consultant. I know
weird.
so much about this stuff.
Yeah, it's a hard recipe to replicate, as Prescott said, because yeah, trying to get all the ingredients in and then keep baking new different cakes and flavors. It's like the crumble cookies of live service games. They got new
Yeah,
flavors, entice you to keep coming back, make something fresh. So there's like, I've seen that one before. No,
and if you
it's
Destiny players are wondering, "Well, Destiny survived, so it must have done both of those things right." No, it didn't. I would say, Destiny was actually closer to it kind of wasn't Helldivers or Suicide Squad because it wasn't a huge success right at the beginning. It kinda I mean, it had a foundation, it was a Bungie game. But it also didn't have a content road pipeline, and so the difference is when Destiny made those mistakes, it did it before Destiny existed, and before Fortnite existed, and before, all the
Anthem
live
and
service games.
Division and all of that
Yeah,
stuff is we've seen
if
it.
you make those mistakes today, you will burn
Yeah.
real fast,
Yeah,
and,
Destiny couldn't launch today in the way it launched before, it would die.
no,
It
no,
would
no,
yeah.
Destiny wouldn't have lasted 6 months if it launched the way D1 did
And
back in the
everybody's
day.
still competing, you said it, everybody's still competing against Fortnite. That is still the biggest live service out there without a question, giant
I don't know
audience, kids of all
I
I
don't know
mean,
if it's
all
direct,
ages.
though. I don't know if it's a direct competition because I put them in a little section called the PvP, multiplayer games, and
Yeah,
even within that, there's kind of a battle royale thing, and the difference there is that the expectation on how much content is going to come out and what type of content it's gonna be and how frequently is way different. It's like all cosmetics, it's like 1 map a year, basically. It's
yep.
like and those games are easy to maintain, but even those fail. I mean, Knockout City, their content pipeline wasn't enough, and they were competing for a very similar audience of Fortnite in terms of it's a cartoon game where it's PvP only. Um, and I think that's the big problem there. But I don't think that any of the examples we're talking about are really direct competitors because I think Helldivers is a very different audience. I think Suicide Squad's a different audience. I think Skull and Bones is a different audience. Those are largely not PvP games, and they have a very different um, goal and also different pipeline. They're more similar to Diablo, I think,
Mm.
in terms of what they have to support. But yeah, it's interesting times, man. These poor games are gonna get beat up, probably all 3 of them.
Yeah, all in their own way. Yeah, it's like Helldivers may have a high rise and a quick fall, depending on how long people stay around. I mean, people saying, "Oh, Pal World's lost a lot of its player base." I was like, "Well, they hit 2,000,000. They're still hovering
Yeah.
around 300,000." So it's like, but again, that game did not expect its success,
Yeah.
so that's going to be a
I didn't
while.
expect the success, and it had absolutely no roadmap because it's an early access, dude.
Yeah,
They're still making the game. They didn't expect this to happen.
yeah. There's what a good chunk of the maps that's not even done or something like that, right? It's
Yeah, so you can't go to the final island area with the big tree,
yeah. So that's a game
big
that
red
people will
wall.
probably spend a lot of time on and then come back to in I feel like I mean, they made $500 million probably from all the sales that they did, some ridiculous amount of
Yeah,
12,000,000 in sales
and
alone.
apparently they were hiring from, like, cafes and stuff, so they're probably very happy with those returns.
Yeah, they're gonna
Did
yeah,
you hear that
oh,
story?
yeah, no, the yeah,
Yeah.
some cafe or whatever he was, yeah, I heard something like that. He was
Local, he worked in, like, a
yeah,
coffee shop, they
he's
were
like,
like,
"Oh, yeah,
"Yeah,
he was
we
the
need we
one
need
who
we need bodies."
yeah, we need somebody to make the models or something." That was that guy. So it's yeah, and that I mean, and you've got a lot of D2 creators jumping around because I am actually impressed. Some Destiny 2 content creators are sticking with it. I think those are the ones who have a very established audience, your Fallouts, your Crosses.
Yeah,
Those
or
are the
the audience
ones
will come with them even if they don't play
yeah,
Destiny.
they'll put a video out and they're still gonna get a good amount of views over stuff like that. But a lot of them are still banding, thinking about more second channels, understanding all of this that's coming. It's like I'm playing um I was gonna say for something novel, I don't know if you'll get a chance to get to it, but do you have you seen Ultros or have you played it?
Which one?
Ultros, it's like the psychedelic Metroidvania, like the brightest color palette you've ever seen.
No.
Um, so I've actually got that one and I'm playing a little bit of it, and the loop is kind of interesting. I don't know if it's like the best from what I've seen so far. I think it's going to grow on me probably as I get deeper into it. Um, but just the color palette alone is kind of ridiculous because uh, it's like one of the brightest games that I've probably ever seen in it. That's one of those that I think just came out, and that I don't know if is gonna get enough time to shine because, thaumaturgy, is that how I say it? Am I saying it wrong?
Yeah, thaumaturgy.
Thaumaturgy, that actually intelligently, by the way, I wanna give them credit, they moved their game. I think it was just a couple of weeks, they put it in early March. There's less in early March than there's going on right now. So they're actually gonna have a chance to give a little breathing room to their game. I was actually
Nice.
happy to see them move that one just a little bit because that's one I was hoping to get a chance to jump into, but I wasn't sure where I was gonna find time. Because I'm also looking at Nightingale that has early access coming up very soon on the 20th. Unfortunately, they bumped theirs 2 days forward. Don't ask me why. But theirs is on the 20th. Pacific Drive, I did a preview for that. I may or may not be doing more for that. On the 22nd,
Nice.
that one comes out. That's the station wagon survival game. Um, it's this month is still just nuts though. So it's like the ones that have had success, the Pal World, Helldivers, I'm happy to see. But if you don't have that word of mouth, Steam news article success all of a sudden, like Skull and Bones, or if you come out, don't get your great reviews going on, everybody's speculative about Suicide Squad, people are gonna just say, see ya. Like it's not gonna last long.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate to watch the stuff like Skull and Bones. There are probably a lot of different groups that put their hearts into certain pieces of that game. Unfortunately, it's just been through so many pieces. Rocksteady, it's just not what everybody wanted, it seems. And unfortunately, shooting guns and doing the same 3 missions over. That's another thing. You see a budget like that and you hear that it's like the same 3 missions over and over, you have to wonder, come on, how do they not like read the room and have a little more variety when Diablo literally had one of their seasons come out, not do great, learned some lessons, 2 was better, 3 was only okay, but then they're making quick switches. It just is it is not easy to make games. I saw more layoffs were probably coming from Embracer who they kind of suck. They're killing every one of the studios they touch
They
right
love
now.
it. They love the layoff. Big fan, huge fan.
Xbox had their blip of a podcast today, which was nothing. There will be 4 games that they aren't saying what they are, but there are 2 games that have been out for a while. I think somebody on
Yep,
my Discord said there were 2 live game or 2 community games and 2 smaller games. I think the
that's what they
specul
said.
so like
Tom Warren already thinks he has an
Grounded,
answer, which he probably is right, yeah.
Pentiment, Grounded,
Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves. What was the other one?
Pentiment, Grounded, Sea of Thieves, and it was another one with a community.
Yeah. Like Rook was the one in my chat that's added, and I think added pretty well. Right? Hi-Fi Rush. Yeah, I was like, those all make
Hi-Fi
sense.
Rush.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like Hi-Fi Rush, smaller Shadow Drop, get it to a bigger audience that's been a year, totally
I mean, that
fine.
makes sense to me. If I were Xbox, I would be taking the vast majority of my games and putting them on other platforms a year later, and I would, advertise that you could pay next to nothing if you played on Xbox instead. I think that's the right strategy.
Ninwinder in chat was just like, I want Dave the Diver to come to PlayStation. Isn't that coming to PS5 with like Godzilla? Isn't that like April or something?
Yeah, I think Dave the Diver was always gonna come to PlayStation.
Yeah, so that's coming to PlayStation with the Godzilla thing about a month afterwards, I think, whenever I saw that video.
Mm,
Which I heard the first note of the Godzilla. I'm like, are they? And they did. And I was like, yes.
yeah,
Dave the Diver is still one of my favorite little surprises. And I know you hyped it even before I got to it. And then
yeah,
just the deeper I went into it, because it's a great little
great
game
game,
there that
great game,
punches
yeah.
so far above its weight.
9 out
Yeah.
of 10. Yeah, easy.
Yeah. Easy
Easy
night.
9.
Yeah. But yeah, I was like, I'm playing early. And that's the thing for me right now is I am trying to divide my time as one person probably a little too far. So I've got to figure out my focuses versus I'm
Yeah,
not an IGN trying to do all the different things, but it's also kind of the wager of what game's gonna hit if I spend my time reviewing
exactly.
something and then knowing it's like, hey, should I it's like Helldivers is harder to get early access to. It's PlayStation. You have to be in the loop for PlayStation to be able to get early access there. I had a hunch. I asked a lot, never got anything. I was like, okay, got a chance to play Banishers, played that. It's not going to be that big. It's just not. It's a different type of game. There's not as much
We
to
knew
it.
that then.
Yeah, I know. Um, and then I take something like Pacific Drive or Nightingale. Guessing Nightingale, being a survival game, is probably still going to have bigger legs than Pacific Drive ever will. So it's just trying to
Yeah.
figure out what to cover right now. It's
What's gonna click?
what's gonna click, what's gonna explode, what's gonna flop.
My next reviews are the 1.0 release of the Outlast Trials is my next review in
Is
March.
Outlast that creepy horror game? No.
Yeah, but
It
that
is?
it is.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Outlast Trials are a PvP version of that, or not PvP, a multiplayer version of that where you and friends work together to escape different horror scenarios. And
Ooh.
I reviewed the early access version. I can't remember what I gave it. I think it was like a 6 out of 10. I thought it was okay. Um, but that was early access, and I thought the concept was really cool, and so I'm interested to see how it actually turned out. I'm actually gonna look at what I gave that because I don't remember if I what score I gave it. But yeah, that one I'm really I like coming back to games after they've had some time to develop because I think the last game I reviewed or I didn't review it, but I played it earlier and didn't really like it, and then I went back and reviewed it, was Grounded, and I ended up loving that
Oh, well,
game
yeah, I
in its
heard
final
my
version.
brother played a bunch
Yeah,
of that, you and Cog both. Like, Grounded
yeah.
feels like it
But
got
when
the
but when
chance to
when we
cook.
originally played it yeah, when we originally played it 2 years earlier, not fun. It was not that good. Oh, I think I gave it a 7.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I gave it a 7, good. Unique cooperative horror game with a lot of potential, but it's one of those early access games that's unpolished and lacking content. Pretty like, normal? Yeah. So I'm interested to see if they really fleshed it out and added more stuff or what's different in the full version. And I've gotta update my, my top horror games list here, my playlist.
Oh,
Favorite scurry games. Wow, I put The Suffering over Condemned, huh? Oh, because I'm going based off of how scary they are. Okay, interesting. These lists, man. By the way,
man.
shout out to IGN Playlists. It's a feature where you can create your own lists and then share them out. It's
Oh,
pretty cool. I recommend people do it, even if they're not a writer for IGN, because it's just like an easy way to keep track of your games and update them as you go and stuff like that. It's kind of just a nice little checklist for my brain.
but I was like, even if you look through like popular games that have recently released and stuff, you've got Helldivers 2, Open Critic in 83. Ultros, that one's at an 81. That's that vibrant Metroidvania. Banishers actually
Yeah.
hit an 81, higher than I kind of expected with your initial thoughts in mind.
Oh, wow,
Um,
that's cool. 81.
yep.
Good for them.
Then it's just Persona 3 was
I feel
recent.
like part of that though, part of the Banishers getting an 81 is people just really feel I feel that people are afraid to give low scores to games that have like that tone of like it's slow and it's serious. I feel like people are just like, "Oh, it must be good." You know, there's a little bit of that going on, in my
That's
opinion.
why I mean I was torn. I was torn between the 7 and 8, and again, if I was going after the IGN style, but for me it just felt like, and that was just the gut. The gut for me was like, for whatever reason a 7 just felt low, and I was like, that's not a good way to do it for a review site, but that was my personal
Yeah.
gut moment. But I mean, we already had Like a Dragon, Tekken 8, Grand Blue, which I saw had 100,000 people playing at one point. Persona 3 Reloaded. So if you're going to come out and you're going to do a Suicide Squad at a 60, or if you're going to come out and do something that's not as good right now, Enshrouded only has a 73. Wow, I feel like that one actually had a lot of success too. There's too many things right now that you have to come out and be stellar. And I guess this is probably the last thing we can discuss since we talked about games. I was talking to you about it.
Yeah.
Um, so, like, from my outside perspective, not so much as tight to the industry as you are, because I know you just hear more people talking and you have, I mean, you're friends with Rebecca Valentine. She's got her ear to a whole lot of stuff because
She's
shout out to
awesome.
her
Shout out
work
to
that she
Reb.
does
She's moving soon. It makes me sad.
moving.
She and her husband, they're moving. She's from Kansas City originally,
Oh,
and they're moving back to Kansas City.
just working remote.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Shout out to her.
Um,
Gonna miss you, lady.
but it's just kind of the idea of it's like I said this to you and I wonder, I'm like, okay, so why would some games, if you see all this stuff, and I saw Thaumaturgy actually go, hey, we're gonna bump it a couple weeks to early March. It's a little quieter than Rise of the Ronin and Dragon's Dogma 2 on the same damn day. Like, at some point, can't you be like, hey, somebody somewhere has to say, now, okay, I know those are both open world RPGs, so I feel like those actually might have a little bit more of an audience overlap. One of the things you mentioned was audience overlap, and you say, hey, Fortnite isn't going to have the same audience that a Power World will. Okay, that's
Yeah.
fair. But on the other side,
Actually, that one might.
I was like,
People,
okay,
because it's got
cartoony.
crafting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crafting as well within the
Yeah.
world.
I guess I just wonder
So that one
sometimes, like,
elements.
and then you mentioned to me, it's like, well, why does everything have to be February? And it's like, as soon as you get into the summer months, I'm like, but
Spring
March,
months.
April, May
If
still
you
feel
have to
like
launch you have to launch in the fall before the winter or during the winter because people stay indoors. This is something it took me a really long time to realize why this was happening because I live in California and we don't have seasons. But people
fair.
do not play video games during the spring and summer months because they are increasingly outside, and there's a ton of data to support that, whether it's Steam, play list numbers, Steam player counts, and also, self-reporting from games publishers and games makers about how what their engagement looks like during the off months. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to release during the fall and winter. And interestingly, February ended up becoming the date that people chose because it was the last call on games that might sell well before the spring and summer months.
Yeah.
And they're procrastinators, just like they come out right before Black Friday. They were like, let's come out right as soon as we can responsibly put out a game. And now February is ultra packed and October and November are ultra packed. And
Yep.
that's not on accident. The only exception to that is that sometimes if you know you're not going to have a huge audience anyway, it is more beneficial to just launch when nobody else is launching anything. And we saw that become a thing during the Xbox 360 generation during Summer of Games, where they would intentionally
Yep.
have dry periods and then they would release these really small indie titles during the summer when they knew there weren't a lot of players, but because there also weren't a lot of other games coming out, they sold well. So there's definitely exceptions to that rule, but I think generally it makes sense to release a game when you think it's going to get the most players, and I get why people choose October, November, and also February because they're procrastinators. I would say if there's anything that they change, I would hope more games would start coming out in December and January, because I am selfish and I don't celebrate the holidays and I want to work on games at that point. But also because I think they'll sell better. And I think the reason they don't is because the creators are taking breaks during that period, and nobody wants to be at the office launching a game, the most stressful thing you possibly could
Yeah,
do.
right around the holidays.
Uh,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, right around the holidays. So
I was like, for me, I mean, granted, you never quite know how years are going to go, but I mean, living here in Texas, this past summer was 100 degrees so much that honestly, like my wife, she was in a musical this past year over the summer, and she was like, well, like, she got asked like short notice and hadn't done one in a while, but asked like, hey, will you, because she majored in ballet, she does dance and stuff like that, so she's in the ensemble, but it was like, well, we're going to stay inside anyway, so I may as well go dance in a studio as opposed to being here. But it's like for me, it's like depends on the state too. It's like for you, you've got good weather all the time. Depending on if you have like I lived in Wisconsin, winter sucks. You're not going to go anywhere. So I understand there are people inside, but I will say like certain areas down south, I'm like if it's 100 degrees outside constantly, not a lot of people are
yeah,
going outside either because even my friends and I would go, whether it's stand up paddleboard or do something at a lake and just. But if it's too damn hot to even sit out there for a while to be comfortable, that's kind of the point to where the summer months make sense for some places, but for the average, I do totally understand the weather and the seasons and all of that. I guess my thing is to a point, there are still some gamers, some people who don't want to go outside, some people who don't want to do certain things. So there's some population, but it does feel when you have something like all of this stuff in February. And I sit there and I wonder, it's like, what if you wait till things are quieter, but you're one of the smaller ones that comes out? Do you have a better shot at things? Maybe, maybe not. And again, as you said, there's a lot of data saying not. Just from a
yeah.
consumer perspective, sometimes it feels like I'd like to play 3 different things right now, but I can only pick 1. So also some stuff just gets missed because there's only so much time or so much
Yeah.
budget to be
I
spread
also don't
around.
I don't know how your winters are, but I think the general consensus is that when people spend the winter and fall, not the fall months indoors, but when they spend the winter months indoors, they're more eager to get outdoors, even if the weather isn't ideal. So if you're in a place where it's like always hot but never super cold, then it might make more sense why you have it reversed. But I think they're going for the world at large.
Yeah.
It's also interesting because Japan has a different release model because it depends if they're selling in North America primarily, which most games target North America because it's the biggest market in the world. But if you're not targeting that, then that's why you'll see games release at like weird periods like June. And I think Dragon's Dogma is an example of that. I think Dragon's Dogma is like primarily it's made by a I think it's made by a foreign studio, and it's targeting some sort of different market or something. It's interesting. I like following this stuff, but yeah, I think games will come out when they come out, and I hope I have chance to play them all. But you don't
Yeah.
always, especially when you're playing Infinite Wealth, which is taking up all of your life outside of
Okay, so
reviews.
let me ask you this. Final shape in June. Are they shooting themselves in the foot right there?
No,
Because it is just
because
Destiny's gonna Destiny.
Destiny's gonna Destiny, and also they're selling to
A
old
play
players.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
player base who's already got it.
I don't think Destiny has been shooting for new players for quite a time now,
Yeah.
and so I think they're just kind of doing it whenever. I don't think it'll impact the game too much.
Yep. Yeah, summer break, and then what was Remnant was like late August, right? That was kinda
Yeah,
getting to the end of summer. I was trying to think.
and that was
Diablo was
because that
earlier.
was because they were trying to find a period that wasn't,
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate or, what was Starfield.
Yep.
They were
Yeah, and
trying to
those
find a
2.
period. Yeah, June actually historically used to be the worst month for games.
Yeah. Well,
I
that's
think it was both
E3. That was
because
all news and everything else,
it
right?
was both because no one wanted to sell it and also because you would get almost no coverage for your game if you released it in June because of all the E3 news, but maybe that's changing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. There's just way too much to play right now that I want to play, and I don't even have enough time to try and cover the stuff that I want to try and cover, which is difficult because even just to try and wrap my head around a game early, or if I get it like Helldivers, I'm jumping in on time. But if I was trying to finish up, it's yeah, there's not enough time for a lot of people, and some people only buy like one or two, which is fair. E3 is done.
Yep,
I do believe E3 is done. You'll have Summer Games
it is
Fest. You'll
done,
have
and
IGN summer
in fact,
stuff.
IGN is trying to scoop E3 with our own event,
Yeah, I
so
saw that. I don't know
that'll
how
be
that's
fun.
gonna do either. We'll see.
I mean,
Hopefully,
we've done the Summer of Games multiple years in a
yeah,
row, and I
you guys
think the
did that.
feedback from that has been that it's extremely successful, and please do more of it and make it bigger. So I think we're directly responding to fan feedback by making it a full-fledged event. Also, our headquarters is still San Francisco, but our physical headquarters, our biggest office is in SoCal now, in LA. So
Yeah.
I think they're just using it as opportunity because the San Francisco office is officially kaput, gone.
Oh.
'Cause, NorCal is the head of our editorial department, and as it turns out, editors don't need to work in an office. But LA is the headquarters for our video team, and as it turns out, they do need to be in
Yeah,
the
you need a
office.
physical
So,
location there.
yeah. So, editors like me are all from home now, and then, people who are on camera or working with cameras or video are, in SoCal.
Yeah.
And some people had to move down there, single tier.
Oof.
Yeah.
Well, some ups and downs to the world of Hollywood and crazy traffic and beaches, there's some pluses and minuses
Yeah.
down there.
I'm not a big LA guy, but it's, it's got its virtues,
Yeah.
like all places.
Well, at this point, if you're not having fun playing whatever you're playing, just go check out something else because there's a ton of stuff to play right now. That's the biggest thing I can say
Right.
is
You're
you're
welcome to
like,
play Skull and Bones with me, if
yeah,
you wanna be a pirate,
yeah. And I
I'm here for
actually
you.
have a copy of Skull and Bones to give away on PC. So you will have to have PC, but I do have a copy. So I'm going to figure out some way to
Only
give that away. Um, since I haven't had too much interest from a couple of my friends, I asked them first and they were like, don't waste that on me. I'm like, all
which
right, we'll
can
find.
tell you everything you need to know about how this game's gonna do. But,
Yeah.
yeah, I also have an extra PC copy that I'm supposed to be giving to a buddy to help review, and the people I gave the copies to aren't playing, which sucks because 'cause I'm supposed to be getting multiplayer footage here. Um, and, then the
Going
extra copies
swimmingly,
I
it sounds
still
like.
have. Yeah. Well, it's like, you give your friends a copy and you go, "Hey, can you help me with the review?" And they say, "Yeah." But then when it's a game where they have to properly level along with you, it becomes way harder for them to
I was going to
actually
say, if I
help
tried to
you.
play with you, I would be useless or you would be
Yeah,
bored, one or the other. I don't feel
exactly.
like there's a way to, there's no
So,
like
I think
level scaling around each other.
yeah,
I
there's
can't go over
not.
to what is it, the West Indies or something that I'd have to
You
sail
can go
over
over to the
to,
West Indies at any point.
and I'd probably
You
get
just will probably get
smoked.
destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
It's
honestly,
like,
me sailing to the West Indies during the beta when I was still way underleveled ended up being the best move possible because it was definitely scary getting there and getting to a port, but then once you actually do, you're like, "Oh, shit. Oh my god, I can buy all these schematics to way better ships," and you find yourself, in a way better ship than you should be at that point in the game, and the cool thing about this
ah,
game is that your player level is 100% based on what ship you're in and what equipment you have on that ship, and so I went from level 3 to 8 in, like, an hour
wow.
because I got a schematic and I was able to build it, and then I put a bunch of good cannons on it and good armor, and I just got crazy, crazy high level, so it's a cool game, man. What if I become a Skull and Bones main? How would you view me in life
You know,
if this was my new destiny?
you could make worse choice. It's not a Suicide Squad main. I probably shouldn't say that. By the way, shout out to WB for giving me a copy of the game, and some of you guys may be mad that I haven't had a chance to jump into it yet. I've been too busy, but that ship has sailed, so to speak.
Suicide Squad?
Yeah.
Well, they didn't send me a copy. I bought
Oh,
one and I still haven't played it, so womp
well,
womp.
either way. I was trying to get early access is what I was going for because servers went live on the 31st and then like it launched on the 2nd. I was hoping to
Right.
be able to jump in, but and then I think everybody's dump of crapping on it in a review, initial like guides and everything came out in those first 3 days. So by the time I got normal access, I was like, cool, thanks for a copy. I missed that entire preview early window to do anything, but I was also like, do I want to pay $70 when I know I'm going to get it in 3 days? This seems kind of dumb.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah, very privileged
Rock and a
decision there.
hard
Don't get
place.
me wrong, but yeah, it's still
How am I gonna play this free game? Life's so hard for Ebontis.
right. First world problem for sure. But when you are
Mhm.
trying to cover the most I mean, granted, now I will say I watched somebody who did have very early access and the views on their videos. Unfortunately, the ones that I've seen not doing well. So it's like I am sorry for the person who
Yeah.
did that. It's just like right now the coverage doesn't
Yeah,
seem worth it.
I'll just so you know, the IGN conspiracy theorists who think we gave the game a bad score because they didn't give us a copy, we do not care who gives us a copy, and also, if you played the game, you would know that that conspiracy is pretty off because the game is apparently not that great. I have not played enough of it to really have an opinion, but games speak for themselves, guys.
Yeah.
Games speak for themselves.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the thing about Starfield. IGN supposedly crapped all over Starfield. Is like my review scale went from a 6 to an 8 to a 7, depending on what hour you caught me in playing on that curve. And mine was a
True.
journey. Mine was a journey on that. Hey, the early part, this is really slow. Is this really all I'm going to be doing? I went through all the quests. These quests are kind of cool. Voice acting, interesting choices here. Okay, choices don't have too much matter. All right, I'm repeating a lot of the same stuff, and now I'm 120 hours in, and I'm enjoying less. Like, if I would have played longer, it probably would have gone back down to a 6 the longer I played, I think. So,
Yeah.
Starfield, somebody's like, Starfield is a hard 6. I'm like, I think I would have
It's
landed
funny
on
it's
a
funny because
7, but
people forget that that was also an IGN conspiracy theory,
oh,
the
yeah.
Starfield review, and I think anybody who's played that game for a long period now probably would have a much harder time justifying that being at all a conspiracy theory because,
Yeah.
that game is controversial, and you could definitely see how a reasonable mind could think it's a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I think that's the
And
thing I said.
I happen to be one of those minds, by the
Yeah.
way. I think I ultimately land on a 7 with that game.
I think yeah, final score for me would be a 7. My review, I finished right after I did like some of the big story beats. It was an 8, but then like
You
my
gave it an 8?
continue, but because that's where I ended time wise, I was like 80 hours. But then by about 120, because I was still working on guides and stuff, I'm like, oh, we're back to we're down to a 7. So it was a journey. What's my
It
line
was a
between
journey.
what is my line between 6 and 7? My
Yeah,
I
so,
mean, so what good versus okay, right?
I've recruited Ebontis to using the IGN scale because I think it's good. But yeah, it's 6 is okay, which means there's a good game in there somewhere, but you have to look past a whole lot of ifs, ands, or buts. And a good is it's time well spent. It might have some issues. It's not particularly innovative, but it's a good game that we recommend that you play. We're just not as enthusiastic of a yes as an 8 or a higher score of that nature. So
And it kind of depends on what resonates with people too, because hey, if you really, it was part of it too, is like, hey, New Game Plus has some cool stuff, but you lose your ship.
yeah. You lose your ship that I think I spent 2,000,000 credits on
You
my
did. I
ship.
spent a
Yeah,
lot. You spent way,
I
you were
I cus
shipbuilding guide
well,
man.
because I was making guides
Yeah.
for ship making, so all of my money and stuff was in my ship, and then I just lost everything, and I was deflated. I was like, "I cannot believe they just took it all," because that's not what you New Game Plus means, by the way.
No, that means
New
carry
Game
it
Plus is
over.
yeah, dude. That is not a
Yeah.
New Game Plus that can make me lose everything, so, yeah, I
Well,
was very confused by that. You
and
get
I
to keep your
know,
skills, I guess
yeah.
that's okay.
I mean, I
Your
know
powers.
Cognito really enjoyed his like Starship Enterprise with all of his crew members and stuff like that. And some people went New Game Plus 4 or whatever. I'm like, sure, that's fine. More power to you. But then when I turn around and watch Baldur's Gate come out 4 or 5 days later and have that
It was
experience, right?
before. It was a month before.
Was it? I thought it was right around,
Yeah.
or oh no,
No,
PC was early and then
they moved
console was, or
yeah, they removed
PlayStation was right after. That's right.
PlayStation was, but the Baldur's Gate moved its release date closer because of Starfield. They said that in the announcement, and then they ended up being a way bigger game than Starfield, which was hilarious because they moved out of the way for the bigger game,
Yeah.
quote, unquote.
Yeah. So it's like, and again, like Cog had fun doing Starship Enterprise, New Game Plus, finding all the little things, but I was like, I saw a lot and I saw plenty, and Unfortunately, I've watched the dialogue in Baldur's Gate, and I watched the dialogue in Starfield, then I even went to go back to look at the dialogue in other places, I'm going, voice acting was well done. Like, I thought the voice acting generally in Starfield, solid,
Yeah.
but watching the faces, I literally just, like, looked at the subtitles and listened, and just kind of had the face in my periphery. Because after a while, I got tired of that. Andreja was my one winning factor in that. I'm glad I
She was
chose
cool.
to. I
Yeah.
liked her quest. I thought her quests. Did you do her final
Yeah.
romance? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought hers was legit. I don't know what the others were, but I thought hers was actually
I did
probably
I
the
did
most
Sarah
impactful.
Morgan's out of morbid curiosity, even though I hate her, and hers is terrible, as is the character
Yeah.
itself.
But Andreja's was actually pretty well impactful. Like by the time you got done with her is where I see DLC going, if anything. I have no idea, but that's I don't know if it's
They
gonna be
haven't done
tied to
they
that.
haven't done much with that faction in the
They've done
game.
like
Yeah, they
nothing. I thought that was gonna be part of it when they talk about this other faction. It was like, it's literally not
they
in the game. Where is
I
it?
think they did a whole lot of world building and not a ton of I mean, Mass Effect 1 also is kinda like that, so maybe they were just planning DLC, future stuff that never came together, but
Yeah,
yeah, it is
maybe.
disappointing.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of games to play right now. There's some pretty good ones. There's some good ones. There's some story ones. There's some pirate ones. There's some Metroidvanias. There's some Helldivers spreading democracy. All of it's ridiculous. And if you enjoy video,
Sweet liberty!
yeah, I forget one of the lines when I like gave myself a stim pack or something. I can't even remember what they said in that moment. There's some funny ones, but yeah, it's like I haven't played as much of Skull and Bones as I want to, and then I'm working on 2 other previews, and I do not. I'm running out of days. It is insane. I
I
need
know
to
that
I need
feeling,
I need to
sir.
not sleep like you, I just am not as good at that.
Do it. Do it. Don't sleep, bruh.
Don't sleep,
What do you
bro.
need sleep for? Don't be a little bitch. What do you need sleep for?
Well, I'm also okay, here's the other issue, and I will tell you guys. Shout out to Travis, anybody who is a writer. That is a very practiced skill, and that is something I am very in my early stages on. Just the process of writing, getting your thoughts out in a coherent fashion to kind of and then to be able to go back through and do a video recording and kind of treat it like a script versus a review. It's and those are
Not
even 2
easy.
different types of writing styles if you're gonna do a written review versus a script and how
Yeah.
you're going to have it verbally spoken. So
Yeah.
it's I tend to go I try and get my thoughts out, then try and organize into just, like, some paragraphs that I may go verbatim, some bullet points as I still do some more free speaking and stuff, but it's yeah, it's a skill, so shout out to all the people who have coherent reviews. Yeah, it's
Yeah, for coherency. Woo!
I mean, just, a general through like, thought start to finish that makes sense and not making it sound like a first grade paper with introduction, 3 paragraphs, and a conclusion. Like, to have a little more to it than that, it takes some time. So it's I'm not a writer. It's never been one of my skills that I would claim to be. It's not like I was an English major or anything. So it is a
And I don't know how to make videos, so I hand it over to a video editor.
well, I try and do it all. So jack of all trades, but master of none.
Pretty good, though. Jack of all trades to be in control of your own destiny. Would love that.
Has some moments, so it's fine. Best advice for writing: barf out your thoughts. That's what I try and do. Actually, I do try and do just like word vomit for a while until I feel like I've got something out of my brain, and it's easier to edit when it's all out of your head. I have tried to get better at doing it. I was like, I just need to start writing something, get something on the paper, and then go back and look what ideas popped out of my head. Travis, do you review all games, or I don't know if there's much you won't review unless it's just something you
Yeah.
don't play. You don't review racing games because Luke in Australia does that for you guys. I think
Yeah.
that's probably the only
I
one.
play and am willing to review any game because I don't really have any genres that I don't play. There's some that I'm not as much of an expert about, but typically if I don't review that game, it's because somebody else has more interest or more expertise than I do.
Or more
Um,
seniority at the
but
company and chose to do it.
Seniority is mostly the reason I don't review a lot of the big
Yeah.
games, but,
Yeah.
I like reviewing smaller games and games that are a little under the radar and games that are weird like Skull and Bones. These those are fun games, so,
I would be very curious your
yeah.
thought. Have you touched Pacific Drive at all?
I have not. No.
The demo's still out there. I would be curious. I don't know what you're in the middle of stuff, but if
De
you get a chance, I
Demo
think
is
the
out there.
demo's still out there.
Yeah, after Infinite Wealth in, 45 years, I'll check that one out.
Yeah.
Good times,
You guys are going to be playing Infinite Pokemon for whatever that Sujimon or
for
whatever that's
sure.
called.
Sujimon, bro. Yeah, we're past most of the stupid mini games now, but yeah, God, there's a lot in that game, dude. so much.
Well, I think that covers everything I've got right now.
Noise.
Next week, Cog should be back. He will have talked about
Love it.
all of his Xbox stuff this week. The podcast that could have been an email and everything else. I saw that on Twitter, and after listening to it,
He's really upset about it, yeah. To be clear, they didn't advertise it like it was the biggest announcement ever. They tried to go over the under the radar, and if you watch the video, you now know why,
yeah,
because there was nothing really that they wanted to say. They were basically just there to dispel rumors, which is crazy.
yeah.
But yeah, sometimes you gotta do that, I guess. Gears of War is not coming to PlayStation, unfortunately for y'all.
Halo Infinite coming to PlayStation next week. Just FYI, I'll save you guys the podcast. So, no, yeah, have fun out there. Enjoy the games that you're playing. Cog will be back next week. We've got a giant twid from this week, which we are saving for next week because it's sandbox stuff, and Cognito likes
We
to
wanna
talk about
involve
all that.
Cog.
We'll
Yeah.
have more. It sounds like kind of stuff that's happening next week. They're trying to prepare for the March big patch that's going to be happening. Probably going to start talking about, I think, what is it, March or April, the Into the Light stuff. Oh, Riven's Wishes, by the way. If you haven't
Yeah. Of
touched those yet, you did the right things you usually should have
course.
because they
Yeah, yeah.
nerfed them and it's
Of
easier
course.
now. Yeah, the Ascendant chest when
Yeah.
it was 7, that went down to 3. Those weren't even hard to do. The
Yeah.
lost sectors, I did it in, I think you could do it in like 2 lost sectors if they're on the Dreaming City. So catch a Dreaming City day, you'll be done in no time.
Yeah,
Um,
why do anything when you could just do it later in Destiny?
with Destiny, yeah, you've got 3.5 months. Take your time. Yep. So yeah, we'll talk about all the Destiny stuff next week, and I got a couple games that I'll be talking about next week if I can spend some time playing them because there are 2 big
Noise.
ones. And
Excited
then
to hear about them.
yeah, see if how much time I can put in them in about 5 days, and then 2 more after that. One's not as
Well,
big. One is definitely going to be a lot of time though. So I'm trying to do the smaller one first to see how if I can get that one done first. So we'll
nice.
see.
Oh yeah, I should also mention that I'm reviewing South Park Snow Day, the sequel to Fractured Butthole. So that'll be a fun one.
When is that?
That's my next review after Outlast Trials, I think. Or maybe it's June.
Is
Maybe
it
I'm wrong and I just saw it on the list, but I know that one's coming
Park
up for me.
Snow Day?
Definitely a Travis game.
Initial release date March 26th. Okay.
Yeah. So that would
So
be probably right after Outlast.
So for March, I don't have I have not been able to find a connection to Team Ninja in all of my asking and looking
Mm,
yet because I'm
mm,
very
mm,
curious
mm.
about Rise of the Ronin. I've played both Neos and loved both of those. They were very good action games. And this one looks bigger. I think the one that I might have a chance to get into is Dragon's Dogma, and I feel like need even more time to wrap my head around that whole thing, but I hope I can get into covering that one. That's my goal is Dragon's Dogma 2 because that actually looks fantastic from what I'm saying. So I'm hoping I get a chance to play that one. So that's something to look
Mitchell
forward
sure
to.
seems to like it. I'm excited to see how
Who?
that one turns out. Mitch Saltzman?
Oh yeah, yeah. He
Yeah.
does a lot of those, I think.
He did the IGN first for that game, and I
Yeah.
think he really liked it.
I mean, the first one's kind of a cult-like following because it wasn't ever that
Underrated, that's for
popular,
sure.
but I know a
Yeah.
lot of people really like it that have talked about it. And then this one seems to be just massive open choice, like jumping on bosses' backs like Monster Hunter, and then you've got all your different. So it just looks like a massive, massive RPG. So it looks really, really cool. But yeah, very, very hard to wrap your heads around. So, all
That
right.
one's probably gonna be one I don't play until the end of the year, during the holidays.
Oh, when you get your big year wrap up.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll probably be one of those because it's just so big, and when the heck am I gonna find the time?
I mean, the way the game release schedules, wait till like May, nothing. You'll have time in like
We'll
May.
see. Because remember in May, I review the games for whatever comes after May. Yeah. So, I'll be reviewing what's coming out in June? We just talked about it, Destiny?
Destiny,
Probably
yeah.
probably not that one, but yeah.
Are you not gonna? You'll review that. You have to review
Yeah, but
Fatal Shape.
not in June, not in
Oh no,
June. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. 'Cause they'll that one I'll just get on the day it comes out.
yeah. Nothing pre June. Yeah, it's like when you
Yeah.
get to April, you've got like 1 or 2, but it gets really light. I know Black Myth Wukong's in like August,
Yep.
but the summer right now for game releases pretty light at the moment. We'll see if anything settles into some places, but yes, right now and then the fall, and then quiet summer. We'll see if Destiny 2 keeps us busy with Destiny and episodes and other things. But yeah, I think we'll wrap up episode number 284 here. Cognito will be back next week. Travis, anything else for you on the outro? Anything you can point people to?
No, not really. IGN.com for all my writing and videos, and then Twitter if you want to hear me make stupid jokes once a week or whatever. I'm not a big tweeter anymore. But yeah, nice talking to you guys. Next week we'll talk more about Destiny.
Indeed. So yeah, if you guys are looking for me, covering as much as I can, YouTube is there when I can finally get some stuff to get time to put my head around a game. But for now, check out YouTube. Find me on Twitch if I do stream any of these things that I can play live. Some are live, some are not. And then yes, Twitter will be there as well. But yes, Cog back next week. Lots of Destiny 2 and a couple other things hopefully as well. You guys have a good weekend. Enjoy. Be safe. Stay, you know, stay
Frosty.
comfortable wherever you're going, and then just have some fun playing some games. But for this episode, number 284, it has been
The
the last word.